Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with us. Oh, and look, we have our another next guest, Emily Benoit. Emily, how are you doing today?
Great, Thomas. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back to email camp. Super excited you're here. Cool, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, just want to address something in the room really quick. I've noticed, and we are all aware that the sessions are being pushed to the next session, so please bear with us. Unfortunately, it's a setting that we are not able to change currently at this time. So if we run short on time and you get pushed to the next session, please just migrate back to the agenda and come right back because we've been answering Q&A. Also, if for some reason you do miss some of this stuff, please come back at the end of the day after the event and you are able to review and watch these sessions as well. So thank you so much. Other than that, we are loving this new platform, so it's been pretty stinking great. So awesome, Emily. It's amazing and awesome to always have you back with us. Looks like you're going to be talking about today Space Lab trials, propelling your email testing strategy to galactic heights. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let Emily get it started here. So please make sure to throw those Q&A questions towards the end of the session so we can handle some of those as well. And Emily, I'll go and let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining live, and hello to our recorded folks after the fact. Welcome to Space Lab Trials. So today we are going to go beyond a single experiment to build a culture of testing on your team. So just a little background, I'm Emily Benoit, Manager of Lifecycle Engagement at InStride. And InStride connects workforces with top-tier higher education. So right now I'm in the ed tech space. But I've kind of bumped all around industries in life cycle: food, finance, journalism. And across all of those industries, one thing that they've had in common is that each user base is totally unique for each industry and each company. There are always questions that need answering, and it's our jobs and our privileges as life cycle marketers to uncover those answers. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, finding answers. So you might be used to, in the past, running one-off experiments to optimize a campaign, things like subject line testing, CTAs, all sorts of A/B tests. Those are great. Those are going to be essential as part of your strategy. So today we're going way beyond and building a culture of testing from the ground up. We're going to talk about how you can have these conversations, how you can fit approvals into your tight timelines, and how you can get the entire department and company at your organization really excited and inspired to be adventurers with you. So let's get into it. What do I even mean by culture of testing? This is going beyond the email build to work across your team. So what a culture of testing is a collaborative adventure that's going to combine user needs, your bread and butter, with creativity and boldness. And that's going to be, oh, I'm seeing we have some sound issues. I'm going to keep going, but I'm keeping an eye on the chat in case anyone needs me to change some settings. All right. So you're going to be able to be taking advantage of creativity and boldness, whether you're at a giant corporation or as part of a scrappy startup. Your job as the individual marketer is to kickstart this adventure. It's going to take time, research, and collaboration. All along the way, you're going to see engagement wins in the early days, but your focus is going to be on building long-term, sustainable processes and learnings. It's not going to be a sprint to instant results. And so how do we get started with building that culture, shifting away from individual experiments? There's basically two stages to kick off: identification and facilitation. So right when you kick off, you're going to be focused on that identification. That's going to look like program goals, your crew members, and what are your user mysteries. So to start, what are you hoping to accomplish? What is going to be the key to your company objectives that is specifically achievable by your team's comms? So not just what is the company looking to accomplish as a whole, but what can your lifecycle or email marketing team make happen? So let's say my team's goal is to reduce churn. This is going to be key to getting buy-in from my team, and it's going to ground me all along the way. My next step is going to be to build out my crew. So who else at my organization naturally shares ownership of the goal to reduce churn? Maybe it's product and design, but doesn't make as much sense to coordinate with sales on. So I start with that. Within those teams, who are the individuals who are curious and engaged? Who's going to be my testing strategy champions alongside me? Those individuals are going to be your crew. And I really encourage you to look outside of just your lifecycle department or just your marketing team. And then once you have those teams, you're going to kick off with a few core user mysteries. So let's pretend like you are working at the fanciest company, you have all of the money in the world, researchers at your disposal. What would you want to know from your users? If you could shake them and get the answer to one question out of them, what would it be? Jot down a few of those core user mysteries and put them alongside your program goals. Make sure you also identify who your crew members are. I really encourage you to write this down on one living document and keep it handy. These goals, crew members, and mysteries are going to be your framework through the whole thing. You're going to reference it all the time, and it's going to be really critical when you're ready to spread this strategy to your larger team. So once you have your background, you're going to get into facilitation. This is going to be a permanent part of what you do. So as a marketer, you probably already have a background in these items: storytelling, taking risks, and a growth mindset. That's awesome. This is why you are the leader of this crew. This is why you're the subject matter expert. You're going to grow beyond that role as expert and act as a facilitator, encouraging your tight crew to do the same. So let's say someone comes along and asks, can we run a subject line test on the new Black Friday campaign? That's great. Super good sign that you have folks coming to you. But in a culture of testing, you want to shape that. So work with that testing partner to identify what is the story in their head that's different from today's day-to-day operations. Maybe the reason they want a subject line test is because they have a theory that your lapsed users are overwhelmed by how many options they have, and they just want their lives to be easier. Ground yourself in that user mystery and go big with brainstorming how to meet that need. One of my colleagues uses a phrase that I absolutely love. It's first thought, not best thought. Bring that thought to your brainstorming and bust through insecurity to get all of the ideas on the table. Your only structure is going to be tying all of these ideas back to the user mystery. And when you set that stage of openness, it's going to be a huge opportunity for collaboration. Y'all can evaluate and choose all of the top options together. I like to use Slack polls for that. It's a nice way to gamify and get people involved asynchronously. But you can pull just a few top options, and because you build them all together, if none of those options move the needle, that's cool too. That's a fork in the road of your user story and is still going to teach you what you need to grow. Because all of this work, the framework, the risks, and the storytelling are driving growth. And we're going to get into a little deeper how you showcase that, how you make that happen. But first, let's get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty. So maybe this all sounds well and good to you, but you're saying, Emily, deadlines are deadlines, resources aren't infinite. It is all I can do to get a campaign even out the door. Our timelines are too tight. Your culture of testing can't just be these ideas. You still need the individual experiments that are going to add up to the big change you're looking to accomplish. So here's how you can fit the experiments into already improbable timelines. And it does not involve just adding hours to your day, adding hours to the universe. Whenever you're ready to set up an experiment, there's going to be a little more pre-work. So once you know what the user mystery is, identify how the answers you get to that question, whatever those answers end up being, speak directly to the identified program goal. How is this Black Friday experiment going to help the team reduce churn? This is going to set context for how big of a priority an individual experiment is. And it's going to help you get some backing from senior leadership too. If it turns out you truly do need more resources, whether that's time, headcounts, or tools, you can show them how this is tying directly to your goals. You can also build transparency within the process so team members know what's going on. Get comfortable taking feedback that they have and applying it to future use. That way you can encourage folks to collaborate, but still maintain your deadlines. Get used to saying, love that idea for a new CTA. We've already got our variants locked, but next time we're going to use that, and make sure you do. And a really powerful way to get used to sharing variants for visibility, not editing, is to use smaller testing populations. If you can guarantee that only a small percentage of users is going to receive something that's new, unusual, maybe a little scary within your brand standards, you can create a safety net that everyone, not just your team, but yourself included, can rely on. Because you'll know that even if absolutely nothing comes from the experiment or it flops, you've got that safety group. This will also help get your team used to an agile mindset. So let's say your experiment isn't a subject line or CTA experiment, but is instead an entirely new tactic. We want to launch a nurture leading up to Black Friday instead of our usual seasonal campaign. Once you build all of this and make sure that your creative is addressing the user mysteries, you might still have more questions before onset. You know, does this copy make sense? Should we be using SMS instead of email, or both? Take a beat and just launch the experiment as it is. Go with your gut creative, and then know that you can layer in those experiments all along the way. That's one of the fantastic things about lifecycle marketing. No matter how quickly we do or don't move, there are always going to be new users, always churning users. To them, it just keeps going on. So you always have time to change things up. And then part of the way you can do this with your agile experiments is getting buy-in for holdouts. So when you are ready to launch with that brand new creative or those handful of variants, get used to making holdout groups the standard instead of a rarity. So your holdout group is a cohort that's not actively participating in this experiment. It might be users who are receiving the control, what you've always done, or it might be users that aren't receiving a communication entirely. And I've seen pushback in the past, especially around users not receiving a comm. Folks are worried about missed revenue opportunities or a fractured brand experience, which is a valid concern. You know, if we're staying to our Black Friday example, that's a moment in time that can't be captured. It comes and it goes, no matter how long brands try and push those sales. But remind yourself and your team that this isn't a missed opportunity. The holdout group is the opportunity. It's the way for you to validate the effectiveness of your new tactic. Make sure that all of the work you put in is actually doing things. So if it goes great, you can say, look at this. It was because of this nurture as opposed to what we've previously done, and not because it was an especially great sale this year. We just got a great PR job. Conversely, if it doesn't go well, you can know that too and pivot. Record what percentage of your audience is needed to prove what you know. So at a larger company, maybe that's only 1% of your audience. You know that that's exactly how many people I need to know it's statistically significant results. And really importantly, record that number ahead of time and share it. And this is part of the thoroughness and follow through. Yeah, holdout being your control. So when you have the holdout group, you want to make a game plan for the users that are going to miss your experience. So let's say it goes super great, you've learned a ton. How are you going to serve those users that missed out? Can you send them a custom coupon or maybe a holiday nurture that incorporates what you've learned so you're already seeing the change? Learn something, quickly implement it. And because you've documented this all along the way, it's going to be really easy to invite in stakeholders. So once you get some experiments complete, you're going to want to expand the team culture beyond the initial crew. Luckily, you have already done all of the hard work with that framework, establishing what are appropriate holdout percentages, and having some user mysteries. So set up some dedicated time to present what you've accomplished so far and show how each learning ties back to that principal goal. In this meeting, this is a great time to also go into the new process. Maybe you have the expectation of a longer lead time, or you're looking for more asynchronous collaboration. This is your opportunity to get really rich feedback from diverse members at your organization. You might learn that another department is using a planning tool that you can bring into your flow. You might learn that folks have gotten really good at asynchronous sharing. Invite feedback and invite people into your process. After this presentation, you're going to want to stay in touch asynchronously. This is going to keep the trust going. Keep a log of all of your experiments and what they mean. And this part is key. Remind relevant stakeholders pretty frequently that it does in fact exist. Just because something is in the background doesn't mean folks are checking it. Keep all of the details in this one place and make sure you chronicle both the successes and the surprises in this log so folks know that they can always rely on the results you're sharing. And some of the surprises can also be called failure. We should talk about it and get used to it because failure is always an option in these experiments. There are going to be a ton of times over the course of your career that you launch something new and exciting, you're super jazzed about, that maybe just flops with your users. So to get you comfortable, I'll tell you a story of one of my failures. We had this new user cohort at our company. It was a different branch of the product that just launched. And so these users were unlike any other cohorts we had, but were really similar to each other. And we wanted to take advantage of those similarities and build a referral program so they could spread word of mouth that this new product was available and a great fit for users like them. Tons of work went into this. We had new tools, new campaigns, just tech and creative hours out the wazoo. And we were so excited to launch, built it up in a lot of pre-presentations, launched it, and nothing, not even crickets. So we launched it again and again. And after a few invites, it was clear that what we had was not working. And that hurt. It stung that all of this work seemed to garner nothing. And this is where you switch the mindset from success and failure to instead adventuring and celebrating what you've learned, because that is where growth comes. By bringing visibility into what didn't work and grounding it in the context of why it didn't work in light of your user mystery, you're going to do three things. You're going to understand the user mystery. For us, the mystery was, how do we get organic word of mouth? And wonder why it didn't work. And then you have a better game plan for next time. So it's not about validating the work that you've done. It's not about retroactively trying to say like, oh, it did work. We were just trying to answer something different. It's about recognizing that when something fails, you are plunged into unfamiliar territory. So for this referral program, it was a compensated program. Users received like $50 for every referral they made. It was personalized. They could add their own notes, their own flavor to it. And it didn't work. I was someone who had worked in e-commerce in the past, and I was baffled that what didn't work was money and personalization. Like, who were these weirdos? But I had to remember that the results are all about unique users. What worked for tons of users in the past did not make sense for this group. And so we as a team used those aspects that didn't work as landmarks to find our way to a new territory. So we knew that compensation didn't work because we tested highlighting it or not in campaigns. And so instead we shifted towards focusing on business results. How will this referral transform your business? We saw that customization didn't work because users were bouncing off the page. They didn't want to have to fill out things. So we focused on tightening the process, making it more of a one click and done. And this started to shape the path of where we were going. It wasn't an instant, yes, this works, no, it doesn't. It was a direction of where we need to go. And we, once again, tied it back to the question of what is driving word of mouth for these users. What we ultimately learned was that the tool needed those tweaks, but really it was the user need that we weren't addressing. These folks wanted referrals as a leader to employee feeling, not a peer-to-peer. And by shifting that focus, we saw much more powerful conversions and results. And it didn't mean just going back and dismantling what we had done, saying, oh, well, and trying a totally different tactic. We were able to make use of all that work and have really powerful change. And by bringing positive energy and connectivity to those conversations, the connectivity being, okay, we have this learning, what are we going to do with it? It will facilitate everything that we've discussed today. It's going to build trust so you can move faster, take bigger risks, ease people into it, get them used to learning and growing, and find your answers. Because all we're looking to do is answer questions for our user base. And so to recap, this is going to take some time. I really hope that you leave this talk today like raring to go, ready to transform the strategy and culture at your team. But know that you're traveling light years here, not just down the road. So even that initial framework, what is my goal? What are my questions? Who are my team? That's going to take time and planning, at minimum weeks. You're going to need those great partners on your team whose responsibilities align with the responsibilities on your team. Just because someone is passionate doesn't mean that it makes sense for them to be the most active participant with this lifecycle marketing. And you want that crew to have a natural curiosity. Identify individuals within your organization who are going to nerd out on this kind of thing with you. Y'all are going to share your successes and learnings outside of this crew to the entire company and department. And that's how you'll build a culture that embraces testing. The whole reason for this culture is to have the trust to try new things, uncover mysteries, and be surprised. Because that's what it's all about, uncovering mysteries of what your absolutely unique users need from you and learning how you answer those needs. So I've seen a lot of questions in the chat, and I want to make sure we have time for that. Thomas, I think we're ready for Q&A.
My favorite time, Q&A, y'all. Let's do this. All right, cool. Also, everyone, this is that time. Upvote the ones that are more pertinent to our subject. So let's see. I'm gonna give y'all about 10 seconds. So let's give Emily some upvotes so we can get this going. All right, getting ready to lock down. Okay, cool. Let's do this, shall we? Okay. All right. Also, one of my favorite things I saw today was ABT, always be testing. Still one of my favorite acronyms. So
for sure.
Okay, so Jessica B wanted to know, how many times frequently do you suggest testing something until you get a solid answer? Emily?
That's a great question. It's going to really heavily depend on your audience size. More robust audiences, whether that's the user cohort you've identified or just the company you're at, aren't going to have to run as many tests. However, within that, I like to kind of scale back my testing. So I'll launch with a really aggressive holdout group, maybe 50% of my audience see that something is moving in the right direction and I'm seeing directional change that's identifiable, I'll start to slowly decrease the audience. So that's going to be really powerful. Things like evergreens that are always on. And for individual ad hoc campaigns, you can also do it by applying those learnings. So if you get the feeling that your users want more urgent language, you can do that the next time too and still have a smaller and smaller holdout group.
Gotcha. Okay, moving on here. Let me see here. This is a good one. I love this one. Bob wanted to know, how do we get the departments or projects we work with to accept the results of testing, especially when results conflict with their opinions? Emily, what do you think?
Great question. This is why we're working on a culture of testing, not just individual experiments. So there are a few ways you can do this. One is by grounding your experiment in that initial framework, reminding people what you're hoping to learn and not what the answers you're hoping for. So we're hoping to learn what is going to reduce churn. We're not hoping to learn, does a blue button work? And so if you can remind folks how this directly ties to goals, maybe their bonuses, that's going to be really powerful. And if the results conflict with their opinions, let them know you're not wrong, but your hunch may not apply to this audience or in this way. Like for the referral program example, referrals made sense, just not in the way we were executing it. So that's where you're taking feedback and applying it to the next experiment.
Gotcha. Okay. Hold on, y'all. Give me 1 second. Let me depressurize my cabin so I can take this helmet off for a moment. Hold on. Okay, there we go. All right, now we can breathe in here. All right, moving on to Q&A, shall we? Let's see. I like this one. What is the best way to define a testing population? Kevin wanted to know.
Sure. Again, that's going to really depend on your audience size, but there are dozens of statistical significance calculators on the internet. If you don't have a built-in tool like an amplitude, you can just pop your audience size in and it will tell you how much of a change you need for it to count. And so if the other question is, how do you choose your testing population? Randomization is going to be the key. Again, if you don't have a built-in way to randomize, a lot of ESPs do. You can do things like, does anyone in this group have the letter C in their email as opposed to domain? You can find out a way to tease out a totally random portion.
Gotcha. Okay, let me see here. And then there was one that I wanted us to cover here. Oh, this one came from an external channel, but actually, you know what I can do is I can make sure everyone can see this and read this. The question was, how safe is it to assume that a winning variant will also perform well in a totally different campaign or with a different list of subscribers? And actually, let me put that up so we can all read it. Yeah.
Great. I would say not very safe. So what you're looking to learn is the answers to your user mysteries. So if the answer is, do users need urgent language? And it seems like yes. You would try that in a different campaign in a way that makes sense for the content. And that's how you're going to retest, like Jessica was wondering how many times, how frequently, and see if that still makes sense. See if the answer you drew from it is actually the correct conclusion. Different list of subscribers is going to really depend. So you want to identify, are your users like each other? So for my company, it's B2B to C. And so the B2B side of users is going to be very different from B2C. So those assumptions very rarely travel. But if you have subscribers who are, say, in Louisiana versus Ohio, but that's the only difference, you can try it and maybe just be a little more generous with your holdout and control groups.
Gotcha. Okay, and then there was one more from the external that, let me see. I love this one. Someone wanted to know, this one is another external question that came from another channel. Let me go ahead and bring this down. So they wanted to know, if I can get to it, what's one of the most surprising results you've seen during email testing?
It was definitely that referral program.
Oh.
Like I said, we were offering money and personalization, and they were not into it. And we learned so much more. They're much more powerful as leader to employer referrals than peer-to-peer.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, let's see. And we got time for just a few more. All right, y'all, make sure you keep upvoting those ones that we can make sure Emily gets these answered. Let me see. Emily, how about you actually get to pick one, since I'm looking at some of these.
Let's see.
Call it out and I'll share it.
What's the best one piece of advice for a one-person email marketing team? I think a lot of us feel under-resourced and understaffed. So my advice is to lean even more heavily on other departments. This is where it's going to be critical that the goals you have as an email marketer are tied to the department you're targeting. Because within that, if you're a one-person email marketing team, odds are your business is probably just small in general. Within that, you can showcase to that individual partner that what the work you're doing helps them, saves them time. And all you need is a little creativity and collaboration.
Love it. Love creativity and collaboration for sure. And I thought this was a really good one. Someone wanted to know, how do you establish a realistic and measurable goal? Test a new email campaign, for example.
Sure. Realistic will kind of depend on what you have time for. So this is where it's nice to kind of launch with the creative you have and make adjustments along the way. That way you can look at one element at a time. I saw some questions about multivariate testing. If you can look at those individual pieces as part of a whole, you're going to be more effective. So if you're testing a new email campaign, measurable is going to be your usual metrics of clicks and conversions. But how you're going to showcase that it actually worked is against that holdout group. What is the amount of change? And this is why I like to share rate of change when I'm reporting to stakeholders as opposed to points. So you can share that something had a 4% click rate over 3, but instead ground them in the fact that it's a 33% improvement. And that's really where you're going to see the change. And you can showcase how once we take this learning and apply it to the broader audience, you'll see all of this revenue, conversions, whatever makes sense for your business down the road. What we're doing here is seeing the incremental change.
Love it, love it. All right, Emily, I'm gonna let you pick one more before we get going here in just a moment. Let's see. Anything burning?
Sure. How would you make sense of a result that keeps changing when repeating the tests? For example, one time A wins, one time B wins, one time it's not significant, never accurate. Jessica, I would say that the need you're trying to address with the test is probably really low priority for your user group. So go back and ask yourself, do our users even care if we're using this style of design for another? Is there something more impactful we can do to meet the user need? Take whatever little learnings you have and know that the fact that it didn't move the needle is also significant. It says, spend your time somewhere else.
Got it, love it. Sounds good to me. Perfect, y'all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Emily, thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your day to meet us in space, meet us wherever the heck in the world you are, and just being here with us. We always love when you get to come by for email camp, and it's always our pleasure. So thank you so much for taking time and being here.
Thank you, Thomas. Y'all have a great day.
Awesome. Emily, everyone take care. Everyone tell Emily we'll see you down the road.
Bye, y'all.
Emily, good to see you.